I only really started to become a full-time YouTuber just this year, and within the first 6 months, my #1 video had already generated over $500. I'm gonna share with you why my #1 video took off and how you can make money from your videos as well. Let's do this. What's up, y'all? It's John Masterly here, sharing with you strategies on how to become a big YouTuber. So I only got into the YouTube game full-time just this past year, and I have to say, I've been doing pretty well so far. Just within the first 6 months, I've been able to get over 50,000 subscribers over my network of channels. And just in the first month alone, I made over $500. That was my first paycheck. And by the third month, I was making enough money to pay for rent. So I'm gonna share with you this one video that I have worked on that had really taken off. And I'm really glad that it took off very early because it made me understand what it took to actually make a living on YouTube. So this particular video is all about the sky-high rents in the Bay Area, San Francisco. Now the Bay Area, for those of you who aren't familiar, is this tri-city area in California, which it consists of San Francisco, Oakland, and Silicon Valley, which is kind of around where San Jose is. Now at the time, I knew it was an interesting subject matter, but I honestly did not realize how much of a demand there was for it. The video basically is me ranting about why the rent in Silicon Valley is sky high. Then I showcase a couple of houses and apartments that I visit and share with you what they look like and the prices for them. I very specifically focus around the Silicon Valley area rather than in San Francisco itself and in Oakland. So just based off of that summary, you might have already picked up on a couple things here in terms of why this video took off. First and foremost, I focus on the Silicon Valley area, which is actually a very hot area right now in terms of growth. A lot of techies are moving to Silicon Valley because this is basically the densest population of smart technical people in the world. All the big technical companies from Google to Facebook to Apple are located here. So as you can imagine, the kind of people interested in this location tend to be highly educated, have high degree of income, and very technical, which is a target market that is highly prized, which means that if you make any type of content about Silicon Valley, you're generally going to get much better ad rates, right? The CPMs are going to be much higher than average. For me, I've been able to get about a $9 CPM here. And that's something that I think actually a lot of YouTubers don't realize is such a critical factor in terms of how much money you generate. They keep focusing on views, but actually CPMs, which is how much ad revenue you can generate per video, to me is actually even more important because it could dramatically change the kind of target market you go after. In some of my channels, because I cover content that is predominantly, say, overseas, some of the CPMs are low as $2 to $3, which means that I would need to generate 3 times to 4 times as many views compared to this one video just to be able to make the equivalent amount of money. I mean, put that into perspective, right? This video about housing prices in Silicon Valley generated about 100,000 views, which means that if I were to talk about a similar subject matter for another country, let's say in the Philippines, I would need to have over 400 to 500,000 views in order to be able to generate the same amount of income. That's a lot harder to do. Now, the other thing I think that made this video took off is that I was able to tap into a seasonal trend because I'm talking about real estate, which is another really hot niche, a niche that also drives very high CPMs. This was able to help me find a very specific target market of people who are highly educated, people who love technology, people who want to find out information about Silicon Valley, and in particular, housing in Silicon Valley. Now, once I had that target market established, I just had to wait for the right time of year, which is around May or so. And sure enough, that's when this video took off. And why May? Well, because the majority of people look for new places to live around the summertime, when the weather is warmer and nicer, which is interesting because I actually created this video about a year before in September, and it sat there dormant for a very long time. It did not get more than a couple hundred views at most, and I thought, well, this is not a hot subject matter. It's never gonna take off. Sure enough, when May came around, it exploded. Now, I would say it's also exploded because there's a macro trend happening here, which is that the subject matter of rent prices getting out of control in San Francisco in the Bay Area was something that was being covered in the news a lot. It was a problem that the government was trying to tackle. It was that a lot of new people moving into the Bay Area were venting about. It was a problem for many people who couldn't afford to live there. Average people who work jobs like being a policeman or being a teacher were saying like, we just can't afford to live here anymore. And in fact, for the first time in a long time, many people were leaving California in higher numbers than moving into California. So it became a very timely thing, right? So you have this sort of perfect storm of finding the right target market, finding the right time of year, seasonality in terms of when the video is going to take off, and then having this macro trend in terms of when this type of subject matter was really going to be important for people. All those things added together made this video pop. And it's made me over $300, boom, just like that in my first month after I got monetized. So what can you learn from this? I've been able to take a step back and realize the target market that I'm going after really matters. So I've been really thinking about like what type of content that I want to create that is going to allow me to be financially independent. And then second, thinking about macro trends, things that are coming down the pipeline of things that I want to cover and setting myself to make sure I cover them. And then third, really thinking about seasonality, which I think is something that is oftentimes just glossed over by most YouTubers. A lot of YouTubers talk about how December is their best month for them, and then it's crickets for January, which means that if you aren't adjusting your schedule and the type of content you create around that, you're missing out on how to make more money. And that's something I'm doing myself as well. I'm focused on a lot more content I think is much more relevant during the December month. I am producing a lot more content on a daily basis now. And then I'm planning to just take some time off in January, which is actually what a lot of YouTubers do, just simply because there's a lot less ad revenue going around and a lot less views being generated. Oh, I should even add, what's really interesting about this video is that the majority of the content I actually didn't film for this video. I had filmed it separately for a bunch of different vlogs that I had posted up about us looking for a place to live. And none of those videos had ever taken off. And I would have just written it off, except that I realized that if I was able to take enough of these clips and form it around a very specific story that I wanted to tell and tap into this trend about housing prices, I knew there was potential for something to take off. So don't ever think about your old content as being something that is going to waste. You can absolutely go back and reuse stuff in a way that is very clever. And in fact, that's kind of what I'm doing in this video, reusing a lot of that content for once again telling a different story. All right, y'all, that's what I got this time. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And of course, I would always appreciate if you guys would subscribe if you want to learn more about how to make it big on YouTube. Peace out.